We're talking about the value of freedom of religion, okay, and how does the Torah look at this value? And just to review from last time, on one hand, it seems, we asked the question, does the Torah have a value of freedom of religion? And on the surface, it would seem no, right? That we don't value freedom of religion. You want to go practice another religion, you want to be Oved Avodah Zarah, we'll take care of you. We're not so welcoming of freedom of religion. On the other hand, in our gut, we begin to feel some concept of value to freedom of religion. And really it's an aspect of our gut, but also I'd mentioned to you that like Moshe calls America Medina Shel Chesed, because freedom of religion has enabled us to live in America. So in terms of a concept of some Hakeres Tov, then the fact is that this value has allowed us to develop in a positive way in America, right? And it's been a Medina Shel Chesed towards us because of that value. The point is that in our gut, and also there is a certain Hakeres Tov. So I mentioned to you last week that is our attitude supposed to be, hey, if you're going to hold to this stupid value called freedom of religion, we'll benefit, but if we were in charge, we would never allow that to have freedom of religion. I told you that case in Skokie, right, where that Nazi Machshamo basically said, hey, if you're going to let me have freedom of speech, right, I could do it, but of course I'll never give in to this stupid idea of me, if you're stupid enough to have this value. So the point is that it's a bit of a problem in the sense that, is it the fact that we're just benefiting, but we would never apply this ourselves? Therefore, it seems to be that we really would not hold to this value. We're saying, hey, listen, if you're gonna hold by this wrong value, we're going to benefit. Is that it or not? I would think that most of us have the concept of some type of inner gut feeling that there's a positive view of freedom of religion. In fact, I would say that there's a gut perception that we value the freedoms. Okay, let me give you an example. When you hear stories in Saudi Arabia of women not being able to drive, what's your gut feeling towards it?
Horrible.
Horrible. Freedom. Okay, if you hear about a lack of freedom of speech, what's your gut feeling?
Nishma.
What?
Nishma.
Nishma. So the point is the freedoms we feel in our world, in a certain way, we have a positive feeling about it. We don't just feel, hey, it's good for us, therefore we're going to use it, but obviously I don't believe in it. The fact is there's some idea that when we hear freedoms being imposed upon, we actually see that not being good. In addition to that, if you really look at the people who are the Rishayim in the world today, right, you look at the people of Rishayim, let's just find by the way they treat Eretz Yisrael. The countries are really connected to Eretz Yisrael, right? Well, the truth is, unless you take, actually this is too broad a statement, because you have the European countries who are you have certain Europeans who are into all the freedoms that are also such big fans of Eretz Yisrael. But generally, you think of the real Rishas in the world, they're against the freedoms, right? Libya, before and after, Syria, Iran, dictators. Freedom is an indication of something that we think to be a value. Okay, so is it the fact that if we had an Eretz Yisrael that was Al Pi Torah, would we be dictators? The truth is, I remember one time I was talking to a friend of mine. He's an interesting guy. He came out of the Broyers Kehillah. So his family were real Yekis. I once spent Shabbos over there. I remember Motzi Shabbos listening to the father after Motzi Shabbos put on, I think, Beethoven or Bach or whatever it was. A real old-fashioned Yekish family, real guys, okay? A real term, Derech Eretz, so forth and so forth. He became a Mudjitzer Chassid. So I remember talking to him, after he became a Mudjitzer Chassid, I remember talking to him in Borpark, this is 30 years ago. And it was after Khomeini came to power. And he made a statement, Halavai, should be Rabbanim like Khomeini. Right? And I'm sitting there and I said, what are you talking about? Right? Halavai, there should be Rabbanim like Khomeini. Oh, that's what we need. We need a person who's strong like that and push through Torah and mitzvahs and so forth and so forth. And I was really, what are you talking about? Now, on the surface, if you think about it, Khomeini was an autocratic religious leader. So is that the way we would see the Mashiach? Is that the way we would see as a true Manhig Yisrael, as an autocratic religious leader? You better do this or we'll get you? Okay? I had problems with the perception of Khomeini like that. And he said, the only problem is he's not from it. Well, Halavai, we had from leaders like that. The fact is, though, is that that's really part of the issue here. Is that obviously I felt there was a value in those freedoms. But those freedoms also give you the value not to follow Torah. In a Torah side, the freedoms are saying, I want to choose. I want to be able to be free. It could be a problem. In fact, is that it would look upon someone who's an autocratic imposer as in a negative way. The fact is, though, you have to ask this question: is there some concept that there's a value, have this gut feeling of a value towards? Is that something that has to be considered in your overall hashkafa? So the point is, Rav Lichtenstein wrote an article basically on natural morality. I forget the exact name of the article. It's published in a few places. Read a long time ago. Had published. And I don't have my copy of it, but the fact is that in the article, Natural Morality, Rav basically asked, Rav Lichtenstein asked the question, is there a value to natural morality? What is natural morality? Natural morality is a gut feeling of morality. It's that inner voice of what's right and wrong. Is there a value to it in Torah? So he argues clearly there is. Okay, and there's a lot of people who argue that. He argues it basically from Avraham by Stom. Hashofet kol haaretz lo yaseh mishpat. Avraham felt it's a concept of justice. It's a natural morality concept. And that's what he tied against the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Which leads into the question of why didn't he tie it by the Akedah, right? Okay, the fact is everyone talks about the Akedah, he didn't ask any questions. The problem is he didn't ask any questions about the Akedah. The problem is he had questions. Why didn't he asked those questions by Stone? Classic question. The truth is, there's a medrash that basically says that Sarah Yimena was angry at Avraham for not asking those questions. By those blankety blanks and Stone, by Yitzchak, the tzaddik Yitzchak, you don't open your mouth. Okay, that's a lot of the shittas that say that Sarah was upset with Avraham that when he went to the Akedah, because Sarah died before he returned, was once there were shittas who hold. There's majority who hold that she was upset because Avraham went so willingly. But the point is
there ever an answer for that?
Is there an answer for that? I'll tell you. My answer is that Avraham was in a situation of being called upon to act. In Stom, he wasn't called upon to act.
He was called upon to act on someone else.
That's true, but he
not
was
on himself. He could have said, you know what? Let me kill myself. You know.
The issue. The issue over there is that in that situation, once he was called upon to act, he was in the position of being an Eved Hashem, which means that Eved Hashem means that the person making decisions of what I do will not be me. What an Eved is someone who basically does not have his own will. The Eved has to act pursuant to the will of the master. So the point is, the concept of Abdus, of slavery, is you will do what I say and what I will tell you to do. You have no decision in what you will do. It's like a machine.
Then it's not a nisayon, and then it's not such a...
What's the question is he going to do it or not?
He became
that was the point. The point was that you're in that point he was an Eved Hashem means my will on the surface means my will is irrelevant. It doesn't matter what I want to do. I'm going to do what God tells me to do. Okay?
And if he's misconstrued.
Okay, so there's an issue, and this is why I always have problems with Kierkegaard, is the fact that it has nothing to do with leap of faith. Okay, because Avraham, it wasn't a faith decision. If Avraham had any question whatsoever, okay, of whether it was true or not, he couldn't do it. because there was a concept of not murdering. The only thing is that he had to know exactly, 100%, that this was the will of God.
But that God said, "Kibi yitzchak yikareh lecha zara."
So that's the question he's asked at the end. So that's okay. So that's a classic question. The Medrash says that Avraham had shilos. Kibi yitzchak yikareh lecha zara. So what are you telling me to do? The question is, and it really supports Sarah's question, is why didn't you ask that before you acted? Okay, by Stom, he had questions. It doesn't look like Mishpat, so I have questions. Why didn't he ask it over there? So the truth is that in that situation, Avraham made the decision that if I'm in a situation where I'm called upon to work, to act, to do something, then I cannot question. I have to go and do. Eventually, basically saying that I am basically, my being is totally in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where I will do what I will act pursuant to His will. I guess rely upon the fact that if Avraham there was any mistake in perception, HaKadosh Baruch Hu would correct him. In other words, I'm no longer in charge. You're in charge. Okay, you tell me to do this, I'm going to do this. Now, the truth is I believe it's the base of Levi, but I'm not sure. Someone says that later on, after Yitzchak, after Kodesh Baruch Hu tells him not to sacrifice Yitzchak, the Avraham immediately asks him the question. I understand what's going on over here. On one hand, you say, so Kodesh Baruch Hu, the Medrash says that Kodesh Baruch Hu's answer is, I never told you to kill him. I told him, Aleo Sham Lo Allah. I just told him to put it on the Mizbeach. I never told you to kill him. Right, to actually be makriv. Okay, the point is basically he says, from there we learn the value of diyukim and the permission to do diyukei halacha. That the fact is that this is a remarkable concept in Torah, and the fact is that Kodesh Baruch Hu says you cannot take at face value, but you are obligated to investigate what a Kodesh Baruch Hu really is telling you, which means you have to use your mind, which means you have to start questioning. So you cannot, so in other words, what most people are afraid of in terms of your questions, that maybe it's your personal natiya getting involved and so forth and so forth, that is incorrect. The truth is, if you have a question, you are supposed to ask it, and if it's a strong question, then it no longer becomes your personal tiyah, but it's actually the secret to understanding the halachic process. And that really is the way halacha works. If you look at all the shalos and chuzas forum, how did it start off with? There was a halachic situation, and there was a natural reaction to it that I don't like that conclusion. This woman's an aguna. I don't like her staying in a guna. I'd like to find. So therefore, you're motivated on a personal level to find quote unquote a heter. But once you learn the Gemara and ask the question, and the question, it may have been motivated to search for the question because of some kind of personal wish. But when you got to that question and the question stands on its own, then it's no longer a personal thing. It's the fact that there is a question of what actually is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said. So Avraham Avinu was concerned. I don't know. But maybe I'm making it incorrect. Maybe I'm misunderstanding something. I can't ask any questions, right? Because maybe I have a personality in this. Maybe not. But the fact is what he was taught was no. Once the question was asked, and it's a legitimate question, then you have to ask it. Yeah.
Just two questions on that. One is, if there is a question of interpretation, if he went and he thought, I understand that God wants me to kill him, and he did it and it was wrong, that would be very bad. I mean, it would forget about the fact that he killed him. But if he wants to be precise, then asking questions is the best way to be precise.
Right.
It's sort of an immaturity.
And the fact is, at that point in time, I believe what Avraham felt is this is my own perception, is that Avraham was in an active state where he was called upon to be the actor, so he relied upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu directing him.
And is there anything wrong with, at that point, asking for mercy? Not justice with Stom, but saying, I know you're asking me to do this, but Rahmanut on this other human being.
Okay, that might have been Sarah's.
Otherwise, it's no different
Okay.
those who believe that it's okay to throw a child to Molech. What's the difference? They believe that.
Okay, so the fact is that might be a legitimate point in terms of Ram being told what to do. Why don't you still pray for Rachamim? There's a Gzeres Hamelech. Still there's a din, but you still pray for Rachamim to change the Gzera. The point is that's a good question. I don't know why Avraham didn't do it. I know there's a Sephardi Zemer, some Sephardi song that talks about Avraham one hand being happy to do the Ratzon Hashem and the other hand being very sad but having to go kill his son. And he went to the Akedah with this conflict of feelings, which is already a very sophisticated concept. It might be that Avraham did daven. Maybe Avraham did daven. Okay, but the fact is his davening is not a challenge of not following the Ratzon Hashem. The point was his actions where he followed the Ratzon. Maybe he did daven in his mind. Kosh Baruch Hu, please, I don't want to come, but he went still through the actions. We don't know about that. At least I didn't see. I don't think I ever saw anything that says that, but I don't see anything that says he specifically didn't daven. So it's quite possible he did. But the point is, his davening is a different. It's not. It's in a different realm. You know, it's not the same realm. What do you do? And he still followed the act in that way. But the thing is, the point is that Rav Lichtenstein brings down from Stone that you see Avraham used his own sense of some kind of natural morality, of justice, to challenge the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and saying, Shabbat Kol says the Mishpat. Basically, as I understand it, because he wasn't really called upon to do something, he was basically an observer. As an observer, he could actually do all the questioning he wants. The fact is that after the Akedah, we learned that we do ask questions to understand exact precision of the mitzvah.
In other words, he didn't do the right thing.
The truth is that it's not so simple. I mean, the fact is, on the surface, it's very hard to say Avraham didn't do the right thing, because the Akedah is such a significant act in our Hashkafa. What? Well, it is pretty. I mean, it is significant. The point is there. I know there's one Chassidus or Rabbi, I forget, in the 1700s, who says that after the Akedah, Kodesh Baruch Hu never speaks again to Avraham.
And Yitzchak doesn't speak to Avraham, and Avraham doesn't speak to Yitzchak, and it looks like Avraham and Sarah are never together, and he had to come for...
Well, one sec. Sarah supposedly dies right after the Akedah. Okay, before Avraham comes back. Avraham and Yitzchak, there's very little on that relationship. We know after the story of the Akedah, I mean, the fact is after the story of the Akedah, you see that Kodesh Baruch Hu never speaks to Avraham again. So there's one Chassidish Rebbe who says that was because Avraham should have asked. Okay. So there is some concept in Judaism that does see the point that maybe he should have asked. The fact is the majority of thought in Judaism really praises Avraham for not acting, not asking. Now, the fact is, it is somewhat of a challenge. I think that maybe he did daven in possibly. I like that idea. Maybe he did daven, but the point is that he learned from there, and we learned from there, the importance of asking halachic questions. That the Torah is given over in such a way that it's not fundamental. It's not so simple. To really understand God, you have to question. If you don't question, you can't really understand God. Okay, it's a very different approach than most of the fundamentalists. Just just read the Bible, no questioning. The fact is, in our perspective, is really understand what Kodesh Baruch Hu is saying. You do have to question. And if you have a problem, then maybe it opens up a whole vista of new ideas. Anyways, but the point is, but I'm not I want to get back to the thing about natural morality, that you see Rav Lichtenstein says he learned that from, he says Avraham had a natural morality. Now my Rabbi had a question on that. He says he never understand. He says maybe Avraham learned about Mishpat and justice from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, maybe he was taught it from Kodesh Baruch Hu, but Mishpat, who says it's natural morality? The point is, though, is that the Rabbi says the concept of natural morality. Natural morality means our own feelings about morality. Fact is that there are a variety of arguments to point to the fact that we in Judaism do value some concept of a natural morality within a person. First, you can look at the Eitz Das Tov Ra. Okay, that Adam has the ideas of Tov Ra, right? It's from Adam and Chava. Therefore, there's some concept of knowledge of Tov Ra that's inherent in our being. Seems to imply there is some knowledge like that. There's also concepts of, Rav Lichtenstein argues his idea, where is it that you apply a natural morality, that beyond the halacha, that's where you apply natural morality. You have your own sense of morality. The fact is a concept of Fli Mashur Sedin, but let's say applying the Ramban's concept, Kedoshim Tiyu, that you could have the idea that it could also be developed from the Torah's sources. It doesn't have to be natural morality. Let me try, but I think it's significant to understand the idea that there's starts like that. But another case where you see an aspect of natural morality is in the concept of Chilul Hashem. We have a concept of Chilul Hashem in terms of the Yumos Ha'olam, non-Jews, right? That if something is halachically permitted, but it will be a Chilul Hashem, you shouldn't do it. Now think, what does that mean? It means that the non-Jews will see it and think that it's not right. Are we really concerned about what the non-Jews think is not right? Okay? What does that mean? So one way of looking at Chilul Hashem is the fact that the non-Jews will think that you're not following God's law. In other words, let's take an example of returning lost articles. Everyone knows you're supposed to return a lost article. People know it. So you see a non-Jew who doesn't return a lost article, even though the halacha says that you don't have to return a lost article to a pagan, right? There's a concept because of Chilul Hashem or Kiddush Hashem. There's a concept of that you should. If you'll be a Chilul Hashem if you don't do it, or it'll be a Kiddush Hashem if you do it, you should do it. What does that mean? It means it's really okay for you not to return the object. However, if the person will see you doing that, this non-Jew will see you doing it, right? He will think it's a Chilul Hashem. What is? Well, one idea is he'll think you're not following Jewish law. He'll think you're not being observant of your own Torah. That's one possibility to understand Chilul Hashem. The other possibility to understand Chilul Hashem is that simply the guy will think you're not a good guy from his own perception of some morality. That's not the right thing to do. So it seems to imply that you are giving some type of value to the non-Jew's perception of what's right and wrong. Okay. The truth is that it really comes down to what's called to seichel, seichlius, and the point is that is there value in our rational concepts? So there's a lot of issues to get into the difference between mishpatim and chukim, and the fact that there are certain laws we understand, certain ones we don't understand. But the point is to really get into an issue about the Shem Mitzvah B'nai Noach, where the Rambam says the Shem Mitzvah B'nai Noach, for someone to really do it, you have to accept it from a non-Jew has to accept it from revelation. It's a concept that a non-Jew has to accept it. I'm sort of doing shorthand here, has to accept it because he believes that a prophet revealed it to someone.
But they never had the chance. They didn't have a Ma'amad Har Sinai. It's so unfair. We pull
Noach,
it out of the text.
from Noach. We derive it from the text that this occurred.
But there was a revelation.
The Or Sameach understands it, that we have to understand from Har Sinai that we were told that Noach was told about the Shem Mitzvah B'nai Noach.
Would it be in the text then, or was it more
No,
directly?
there's nothing. No. That's a classic question on the text. The text is totally unclear.
Absolutely.
Okay. The fact is that just because something doesn't seem to be so clear in the text doesn't mean that's just the way the text is. It's not clear about a lot of things.
But how can you expect a Gentile today to?
Okay, so the point is that the fact is that in a certain way, and we're getting to an idea, in a certain way, and I think we have to recognize that there is a universal religion of Judaism. Okay, Judaism is not the religion of the Jews. That's an incorrect understanding of what we mean by Judaism. Okay, because the ism, I'm not really talking about the English word Judaism. If you're talking about the religion of Torah, okay, this religion of Torah, it's clearly universal. It is not just the religion of the Jews.
Even the cookie?
Okay, wait a second. What is religion? Religion is the belief system, is a belief system. What are you told to believe? Right? Oh, now, let's give you an example. You're a Catholic, right? What's your belief system? Is there a difference in the belief system of a priest versus a lay Catholic? Is there a difference? No, they're supposed to believe the exact same thing, the same belief, whatever. This is the religion. The religion makes a distinction between a priest and a lay person in terms of behavior. It says you can be a priest or you can be a lay person, but there's two different behaviors. But it's one faith system. Okay, now lahavdil ha'dedolos, in a certain way, Judaism, the religion, the belief system of this religion is universal. And we're not telling you just what you should believe. What does religion say? Religion states this is the truth. And you, as a person who should know the truth, and then act pursuant to the truth. So the truth is God created the world, blah, 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 gave Charsina, so forth and so forth. Okay, I believe all those things. Now, what do I do? Okay, because I believe in God in this way, what am I supposed to do? So therefore, to a non-Jew, the result is he's supposed to do the Shem Mitzvah B'nai Noach. To a Jew, he's supposed to follow Tariq Mitzvot. That's the distinction. That's the distinction between Jew and non-Jew. The group of people, what their obligations are under this belief system. Now, in this belief system, how do you know what to do? So within the belief system, according to the Rambam holds that the Shevet B'nitzvos B'nai Noach have to be followed correctly. To be followed perfectly correctly, they have to be followed through a recognition of revelation. Now, does that mean that the non-Jews have to believe that Moshe was mitzvah on Har Sinai, was mitzvah non-Jews to do that, or Kodesh Baruch Hu mitzvah through Moshe, that non-Jews should do that? Okay, so that might be what the Rambam means, but the Or Sameach, says no. What it means is at Maimon Har Sinai, okay, a non-Jew hears through Maimon Har Sinai that there was a revelation previously where God commanded the non-Jews through a prophet. So the Shevet Mitzvos B'nai Noach, Noach heard it. God said, don't do this, and don't do this. And once it came down, it became a revelational concept. That's what I'm getting at. Which leads to the concept that morality is revelational. Which is a perception a lot of people have, which is that if God did not reveal morality, there would be no morality. How would you know what's right and wrong? God has to tell you what's right and wrong. So in the extreme, people like to think in terms of the reason that you accept revelation, because without revelation, you'd have a free-for-all. It's like people in our world today say, if God didn't speak, there'll be no morality. Right? So then you have atheists arguing, no, there will be a morality, okay, without God. So you have atheists saying, no, we can be moral without God. You have theists saying, no, there's no reason to be moral, there's no morality if you don't have a belief in God. That's a whole different issue. But the point is that this morality, is the source of this morality a revelation from God? That's one perspective. Okay, so it's revelational, and the Rambam seems to say the Shevet Mitzvos B'nai Noach have to be revelation. But Nissen Gaon, in his Hagdama to Shas, takes a totally different approach. He basically says the Shevet Mitzvos B'nai Noach are mina seichel. They're sichlius. What does that mean? It comes from a rational perception within the human being. Okay? In other words, the human being has an inner sense of what's right and wrong. Okay? And the Shevet Mitzvos B'nai Noach weren't revelational, they were rational. I.e., they came from a perception within human beings that this was the right thing to do. Okay. Now, that's the question. So the point is, according to Rav Nissengon, that would be a support of our Lichtenstein's argument that there is something called natural morality. That there is something of coming from something within ourselves. So what's right and wrong? I've already said in terms of Eitz Hadas Kavara, from Adam and Chava, from Adam and Eve. I've given an argument in terms of Chilul Hashem that we have certain concepts like that. The fact is, though, is I actually wrote a letter to Rav Lichtenstein. Maybe he never got it. Never wrote me back. But the fact is he argues that Seichel, and the Seichel is natural morality, kicks in Lefnim Mishur Sadin. What I asked was, what happens when they're in conflict? Revelational laws are in conflict with the rational, natural morality. Okay? What do you do in that situation? Which is something most people want to avoid. That's really what a lot of people just want to avoid that.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, sure. Guy doesn't want to give a woman a get, right? Woman's a very nice lady. She's been helped out by another guy, and this other guy has been a friend for 2 years, and so forth, and they've fallen in love, and they want to get married, in a monogamous relationship, devoted to each other, and so forth. Because of this SOB, you won't give them the get. They can't. So the ethical perception of most people would be, no, this is wrong. They just should be able to live together. Or the ethical perception of most people would be, give me the baseball bat, I'll be the first person in line. Right? Take care of the first guy, right? But the point is you do have situations where your own gut feeling is not necessarily in line with what you think the revelational feeling, with the revelational direction is. Yeah?
Except that perhaps you could say, even though this is a bit difficult, that in this particular case we see the horribleness of, but if we have a system that discourages two people separating, and yes, it's one person,
okay,
we're not so that systemically.
Okay, so that's that.
So
okay.
it's not necessarily.
Okay, so
natural.
Okay.
It certainly hurts in the specific case.
Okay, so that yields a whole different issue in terms of whether Torah is good for the individual, good for 100% of the people, 100% of the time. Okay? In other words, is every statement in Torah going to be good for you, good for everyone, all the time?
But what
okay?
Does good mean?
In other words, beneficial to you, or the correct behavior for an individual 100% of the time, 100% of the individuals. So there's a Rambam who says, from an ethical perspective, we have to understand if you're creating an ethical system within society, the ethical rules that are developed cannot be good 100% of the people, 100% of the time. It's just a reality. Right. What?
Two people's interests are in conflict, and we have rules that say maybe
right.
yes,
The bottom line is that in any system of society ethics, of trying to create a legal system, or a system that can work in the greater picture of things, it's necessary to understand that there will be some specific circumstances which you're not happy with. For example, let's take the classic example in the United States. Evidence is seized, incorrectly, right? Okay, the evidence is not entered into court. Okay, so you have cases of people who basically could have been the biggest criminals in the world. Okay, and it's clear that these guys are the biggest drug dealers, or they're going to be terrorists or whatever it is, and you have all these weapons locked up, and all of a sudden they got the information from illegal sources, so it's thrown out of court. So have these people who are really Rishoyim, on the streets, and you look at that individual case and you'd say, this is ridiculous. This guy should be going. It's so clear the guy is guilty. He's a Russia. He's evil. It's crazy. He got off in a technicality and so forth and so forth. Therefore, this doesn't work in this situation. The argument is for the protection of society in a grander scheme of things. While it didn't work in that situation, the alternative which is not to have strict laws of these type of laws to protect individual freedoms, would cause greater problems to society. The question is that also an idea in Torah? So there are people who disagree with the Rambam. There are people who want to argue 100% that whatever the Torah is, 100% of the time, 100% of people will always yield the right answer. The Rambam says, no, for that individual case taken in a vacuum, it may not be the right answer, but considering we have to work in society, it is. Now, the point is, though, is that that's not really the same argument over here. You're saying, in terms of looking at society as a greater thing, and so forth and so forth. What I'm getting at is, though, is something a little bit different. I'm getting at the idea that you have two moral compasses. One is the revelational system, and one is what I would call the rational system, natural morality. Okay? And the fact is they don't always go hand in hand. They sometimes are contrary to each other. And the fact is sometimes there's conflict. That's a different perspective on an individual basis. Where let me try and think of a good example like this, where I feel my own gut feeling is, I'll give you a good example, euthanasia. Okay, euthanasia is a good example, right? The classic idea you see from this perception that a lot of people really understood the moral reason for euthanasia. Why people would say euthanasia is right. Here's a person who's in terrible pain, suffering. He's only going to live for another 8 hours. Right? Everyone says he's going to die. He's moaning and so forth. And remember, they didn't have all these drugs back then. And take him out of his misery. He's not going to live anyways. He's most likely not conscious. He's in a coma or whatever. Take him out of his misery. All he's doing is yelling in pain. Take him out of his misery. So you could understand the moral desire for euthanasia.
But it's not unilateral, because you could say that if you have a society that accepts that, you might have people saying, you know, he's ready to go when maybe he wasn't ready to go.
Okay, but the fact is that there's societies playing with it right now, in terms of Holland, there's societies dealing with the issue. But the fact is that you can understand while there is this moral perspective. Revelational wise, no, you can't kill. And there's a conflict which we recognize. Okay, now the truth is, I mentioned to you before, I saw this brought down. There's a famous medrash, Hatov berofim legehenim, the best doctors go to hell. Right. The classic understanding of that is that the best doctors they save lives. Therefore, they're so egotistical. They think they save the lives, and they're not moided. The Kosh Baruch Hu is really the one who makes the decision. So that's why they go to Gehenna. In other words, because how egotistical, because they're doctors, they'll go to him. And the best example is, I saw this movie once where this guy, the guy playing the doctor says, "No, I am God because I'm such a good doctor." Like that kind of deal. But the fact is the question is, the way that medrash is generally understood is that the fear for gaiva and for ego comes with being a doctor and saving lives. You can end up being Yerush Gehenna. There's another another parish I saw brought down. I saw it brought down in Rabbi Jacobowitz's works on medical ethics, on Jewish medical ethics, and in it he says, "Hatov berofim legehenim," the best doctors, the doctors who are most sensitive and most caring, who see a patient in such suffering and has that tremendous empathy for the patient, therefore will commit euthanasia. And that's why they're Yerush Gehenna. Okay? In other words, their sensitivity will lead them to being Yerush Gehenna. A lot of people don't recognize that. The sensitivity is a lot of time. I have an article, and it's actually on our website, on the Nishma website, called The Evil of Chesed. Chesed, the fact that you have a sense of chesed and caring, but that could actually lead to doing something wrong.
Could it also have a different meaning, saying the best of doctors? are in hell because
No.
they have to.
No.
They're torn and
No.
they see suffering so much.
It's not. I hear what you're saying, but the fact is, the Gehenna seems to imply not that they're in Gehenna, it's that they're going to get Gehenna. Okay, the Gehenna. I hear what you're saying. It's cute.
Whoever wrote that just didn't make it into medical school.
Okay, fine. Anyways, but the fact is that I think that there is a concept of some conflict sometimes between revelational ethics and rational ethics. The point is I wrote this for Rabbi didn't answer. But the point is that conflict is very, very, very major within Jewish thought in many different ways. It's a conflict that in many ways people don't want to deal with. That's really at the essence of our issue tonight, our issue here. We feel there's something in the freedoms. We feel there's something good about the freedoms. We feel there's a value in the freedoms. Okay, you can just forget it. Just reduce it. That's your Gracia Nachlis. That's your Sahara. No, it's not Torah. So who cares what you feel? But the fact is that there is something in the human being that is an ethical compass. And that ethical compass is at times seems to be in contrary to revelational ethics. In other words, it's not just chukim where I'm being told to do something which is I don't understand, like kashatness. So it's sometimes you're actually being told to do something that your gut feels is wrong. Okay. And the truth is, in those situations, what do? So the simple is just don't count those feelings. The other thing is in those feelings, and this goes back to the Akeda case, is that's where you have the real understanding of what Torah is about. Ultimately, the rational and the revelational somewhere have to join. We may never get it in our lifetime or in this world's lifetime. That might be something we can only understand would be as a Mashiach. But the point is that something we have to recognize and work with. So the point is we have to recognize that sometimes our gut feelings of what's right and wrong does have a role. If that's true, then we have to deal with that in terms of our whole perspective. So therefore, getting back to freedom of religion and the freedoms in general, if we have a gut feeling that there's some value in the freedoms, and we see on the surface, we have questions on the surface that it would seem that the Torah would not support these values, we can't just dismiss that. We have to recognize that our gut feelings does have a voice. It doesn't have a veto, although the truth is okay, Mordechai Kaplan would say you have a veto, but that's irrelevant. But the truth is, there is one book that I know about from author, although this statement is really very much on the border. A Dr. Michael Wishelgrad, who's a professor of philosophy, and he was for many years he was on the editorial board of Tradition. He wrote a book called Body of Faith, and in it he actually says that your natural morality may sometimes, he seems to say that trumps even halacha sometimes, which is very problematic. But basically, the general consensus from the Akeda and says that is that the revelational ethics you understand from halacha trumps your natural moral perspectives. However, those natural moral perspectives still have voice, and they're to be considered and to be analyzed and to be reckoned with as you think through of what to do and work it out with the halacha. So in that regard, you really end up with this type of tension. So for in our world today, the freedoms, which on the surface so easy to dismiss, we have to figure out how do these freedoms connect with Torah, which seems on the surface not to really have these freedoms. Yeah.
The concept that we have that Torah can be docha, except for in the case of three kinds of issues, to save a life, it kind of is a concept that comes and says that there is common sense, and there is, and that we don't just say the halacha was given, so we have to follow it to the death. We have only very specific cases where that is the case, and the rest of the whole gamut is open
It's a very interesting thing because you bring in another thing over here. When we talk about rationalism, it's obviously logic, and it's also aspects of this rational perception. The point is, in terms of Yereg Val Yavor, okay, that you violated rather than die, Yereg Val Yavor is you die rather than violate, which only applies to the arayas, major sexual prohibitions, and shvichus damim, murder, and avodah zarah and idolatry. Everything else, life, the value of life overrides. That is actually derived from a pasuk. It's actually derived from a pasuk. That the pasuk says that chai behem, that you have to live by them, and then we have to figure out why in these three cases you don't live by them. Okay, but the point is, we actually learned it out from a pasuk. That seems to be revelation, it's not just logic. However, at the same point in time, it's in line with the Sforah. Then we have to figure out why the other three you don't do it. So the point is, though, is interestingly enough, by shvichus damim, by murder, the reason you don't, the reason you're not to give up your life rather than violate, the reason you give up your life for violating murder is actually min hasvara, which means it comes from your own rational perspective. In other words, who's to say your blood is better than his blood? Which means you are supposed to, you can't kill the other person because someone's going to die. So who says you're the one who should not die? Maybe the other one's not to die and you die. However, interestingly enough, I think it's Tosfos, might be more, but I think it's Tosfos who says on the other way, though, if you're not asked to do the Maisa, let's say someone comes over to you and says, listen, I'm just going to pick you up, and I want to pick you up and throw you on top of that little baby over there. And I know when I throw you on top of the baby, it'll crush the baby and kill it. Okay? But and if you don't let me throw you on the baby, okay, I'm going to kill you. Right? In that case, you can ask the question, who says the baby's blood is redder than yours? So min hasfora, if the sfora is this idea of weighing lives, if you're asked to actually do the act of murder, then you have to say no. Who says my life is more that I should do the act of murder? But if I'm being asked to be passive so that I can be thrown onto someone, or basically, but I'm not doing the act, who says that blood is redder than mine? The point is you get into some interesting over here of this overlap of svara and revelation, which we determine from psukim, which is an interesting aspect because svara is very significant in the halachic process. We use svara, we use logic, and so forth and so forth. And a lot of times there's statements in the Gemara that says, I could have figured it out through logic. Why do I need a verse to back it up? But a verse says it's revelational. It's exeris hakosov. That's it. That's the given. But svara is working out. But the fact is, svara work starts with our own perceptions. The point is, though, is that both systems seem to be worked, and both systems somehow intertwine. As I just give you an example over here. The point is that the revelational system, I'm really using language from Nissan Gon, Beit Nissan Gon. The revelational system trumps the seichel system, but the seichel system is still there and to be considered, and it has a voice in working with the revelational system. And that's really where we end up here. From my perspective, there is something in our consciousness which sees values in the freedoms. Good. On the revelational perception from Torah, we don't have any indication of those values of the freedoms. If anything, we have some indication that you shouldn't be allowed to be able to vote as Zara. If I was running a government, I should say no. On one hand, my seichel is freedom of religion. On the other hand, no. You can practice that idolatry. The Torah says not. Okay? So the question is how do you balance it? That's the real issue over here in terms of trying to understand how you can work freedom of religion with Torah. That's really the issue. And we haven't gotten to it yet. We'll have to get to it next week.
Isn't the very fact that the Torah is not so clear on every single halachic point that we do need, and the rabbis are empowered to flesh it out, and we see changes over the generations. imparting that human element and the sikhli and the thought.
The fact is, you're right, but the point is, see, I'm going to say it in a different stress, because the way it comes across is like an afterthought. It's almost like, since the Torah is unclear, of course human beings had to get involved, and the rabbis had to flesh it out, as you say, or work it out. That's not, I think, I don't think that's the correct presentation. Since, and this is really from the Akedah, this is what I was really trying to say from the Akedah, the Beis Levi says, is that since God intentionally says, I'm going to give you a hint of what I want you to do, you can't understand it unless you use your mind and your whole being in figuring it out. It's the anti-fundamentalist. You just want to read it, you're going to miss what I say. You're going to take it at face value, you're going to miss what I say. I am giving it to you, but you have to know that the first thing you have to do to even understand anything I'm about to say is you've got to be able to use your whole head and your whole being into it to even try and figure out what I'm telling you. Okay? And therefore, that is intentional. And what comes out of it? What is intentional is differences of opinion.
Right.
Okay? Right. But you have to understand, in saying that gives you a very different perspective, because it's intentional. It's not intentional in terms of, it's still intentional that you still have to follow the opinion you think is correct. I know I know I've been challenged sometimes at this, where someone will come up to me and say, I'll paskin one way. And situations arise where I've had people about to ask me shaila. I said, don't ask me that shaila. You don't ask me that shaila.
You don't want to hear my answer?
Right, because you don't want to hear my answer. Okay? I'll say, okay, for whatever reason, I say, go ask that rabbi. Okay? The person will say, well, what happened? He says, because my obligation is to give you my understanding of Torah. I know there's other understandings of Torah. I know there's other understandings of what the halacha could be. But I have to tell you what I think the halacha is. And when I say I think the halacha is the halacha, I have to think this is what God wants. Okay? Now, knowing full well that some other person may tell you something else what God wants. So, for me to tell you what God wants, there has to be certain circumstances if you hear what I have to say. But the point is that what I have to say is what I think God wants, the halacha, with a recognition that's because of my understanding of it and working it out and working out. But the point is I have to bring my being to understand it, and that's how we get the reality of individuals being involved with it.
Isn't it problematic, though, when you send the person to another road, because you're actually poskening against yourself?
And the fact that I'm not poskening against myself. The truth is
you know what he's going to say.
Yeah,
that's why you're sending him.
That's true, but I'm not poskening.
Something different than your opinion.
Right, but I'm not poskening. The fact is that there's a reason.
You know what the answer is.
Right.
What God's
there's a
will is.
reason I'm allowing him. I'm directing him to get another psak. The most classic example of this is from Moshe's Heter on Reform Conservative marriages. Right? Where Moshe says they're not marriages, so he'll be oker the kedushin, get rid of the kedushin. So you have situations where someone is married and can't get a get. He's married to a conservative reform marriage and can't get a get. And whatever reason, the guy doesn't want to give a get, and so forth and so forth. This woman has become frum, right? So what does she do? She wants to go and get a shidduch. So the point is other Rabbanim disagree with Moshe. The majority of people disagree with Moshe. But you have classic questions where a person will say, I know this. I mean, I've heard this from Rosh Yeshivas. Like we're talking we're talking about Gedolim card individuals saying to someone, no, don't ask me that question. If David Feinstein, go to Rav David Feinstein. Ask that question. Rav David Feinstein is right.
Rabbi and Rav Soloveitchik.
Yeah, actually, there's a classic story that Saul Berman brings down from Rav Soloveitchik. That's actually in print. They have a book of different people's stories about the Rav. Saul Berman, who now quote unquote is in disrepute because he's like on the left leaning of orthodoxy, but big Talmud Chacham and a scholar. But anyway, but the fact of the matter is, but Saul Berman was also close to the Rav. When the young Israel Brookline wanted a rabbi, the Rav suggested Saul Berman. It's okay, to have the rabbi in town. The Rav says to be Saul Berman. It's pretty good. So Saul Berman was in Brookline. He came close to the Rav. So he was talking to the Rav about adoptions. It's a big problem in adoptions. You adopt someone, okay, at some point in time, if the laws of parenting don't apply to the adopted child, then you have all the problems of yichud. Which means that at a certain age, and it could be anywhere from 3 years old, for girls from 3 years old, it could be 3, 11, whatever, at a certain age, a girl could not be misyachid with her father, and at a different age, but also the young age, a boy could not be misyachid with his adopted mother. It's a big problem in adoptions. So the fact is that do the laws of yichud apply to adopted parents? It's the machlokas. A lot of Gedolim said yes. That's halacha. That's halacha because they're not married. Is it the mother or father? Okay, the Chazon Ish held that way. The Lubavitcher Rebbe held that way. It's a din in the biological mother and father. Usually, the dinim of all parenting is biological mother and father. Kibbut Aveim, so biological mother and father. Hitting a parent, causing a movement of a parent, biological mother and father. Okay, a biological father treats a kid like crap, and the kid goes over and smacks him and bruises him. Kid it could be mechuyev misa. Okay, but the father who brought him up and took care of him and really brought him up, he smacks him and causes a brus. That's not the biological parent. So the truth is, for Shiva, for example, Shiva applies to the biological parent. So a lot of people hold the laws of Yichud only applies to the biological parent. The Rav didn't hold that way. The Rav held that, and there's reasons for it. I mean, the fact is that Masada Svara, I think I really understand the Rav's perception. It's not a din in the biological parent. It's a din in the what the relationship is. If the relationship is a relationship of parenting, where there's assumptions of a certain type of relationship, except with sick individuals, but a certain type of relationship, then there's no problem of yichud. If you're going to adopt, you generally want to follow the shita of the Rav. So Saul Berman asked him, but then he says, I hold like this, and he said the Rebbe doesn't hold like this. So Saul Berman asked the Rav, so because he knew the Rav had some friendship with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So he says, so what does the Rebbe do? What does the Rebbe do if he thinks there's what do Lubavitchers do in terms of, because they have a problem with adopting? So he says, what do you think the Rebbe does? If he knows there's a family he should adopt, he tells the family to go ask me to Shiloh. He says, you should ask Rabbi Soloveitchik to Shiloh. Okay? Knowing full well. What? Okay, it's a very different perception. But the point is, you're not posting. You have an obligation to say what you think is the truth. But the point is, in terms of another individual, and this is the question you ask, is that how do you understand who another individual should ask? I have to tell you what I think is the truth. What I think is halacha. No,
and you're getting
no, excuse me, but no, because the fact is the same thing with lifnei iver. If you hold that something is totally mutter, halacha, I'm not talking about you hold, based upon if you're a person who can come to a decision, and you hold that this is mutter, and I hold it's not mutter, right? And you sit there and say, you see that piece of meat over there? You hold it's absolutely not kosher. But I hold it's kosher. We're talking about people who can say it's kosher, right? Do you mind passing me the piece of meat? No problems with lifnei iver. Because vis-a-vis the other person, it's not any avera. Now, the truth is, this is developed from the Gemara from the Mishnayos in Ksubas, Mishnayos in Yavamas, the whole thing in Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, and the fact that Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai used to direct each other, used to work with each other in terms of their halacha, that halacha. But the fact is that these are concepts that are very, very difficult concepts in basic Jewish thought. But the point is that you decide what is the law, but you recognize that the way the law was given was allowing individuals with correct analysis. Not every stomazoi, I think this is the law, going to come up this way, and it doesn't mean everyone could just choose, well, I like halacha B and I like halacha C over here. There's systems, and you have to know who to ask. So, for example, someone asked me a shaila, okay, I told you with certain things I know I makel in. Person asked me, I generally know is right, but there are people who ask me all their shilas, so those things, those people I also tell them my kulas. Right? But if someone comes up to me and says, oh, I see you do this, I'm not telling you what I do because you have no reason to ask me. There's questions of asking. There's decisions of when you ask people. Situations where I know that people have asked me questions, and I said, listen, there was a reason I felt that this person didn't have to ask me, could ask a variety of people, and it was important for this person to get the psak from someone else. These are cheshbonos that most people don't work with. They're cheshbonos.
I'm missing something in this.
Mm-hmm.
You hold in a situation, Rabbi Hecht holds in a situation that this is forbidden.
Right.
He knows that Rabbi A holds in exactly the same situation, it's permitted.
Right.
And he respects Rabbi A.
Right.
He believes Rabbi A is wrong.
That's the interesting.
Because he holds in, it's not saying it's two different situations.
The definition
it's exactly the same situation.
You're right. The definition of right and wrong becomes a little bit more fuzzy. You're right about that.
He believes he's incorrect.
No, the fact of the matter is, yes, from my perspective, I believe he's correct, and I recognize from that perspective he believes I'm incorrect.
Correct.
Right.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
He's now sending that individual to get an opinion that he believes is incorrect from a person he respects.
Okay, so the question is that at some point in time, he has to, there's two views. There's a view of me in the battle, and there's a view of me looking at the battle. In the battle, I hold this as correct. When I step out of the battle, I see, hey, there's two legitimate opinions within Torah. That person over there is a spectator. Okay? The point is that this spectator is encountering could encounter two different opinions in terms of this question. Why should my opinion be the dominant opinion to say, no, this is what I think is the truth and it's imposed upon you, or whether you should have this other thing where, as a spectator, you see.
Ask me for the question. You came and asked me questions.
Okay. So the point is that that's.
I'm not saying you should go to him and say,
right.
Whatever that guy told you is wrong.
No, you're right. The fact is okay. So the truth is that is a big question in its own right. The point is, once someone comes to ask me the question, then do I look at it and saying that since he came to ask me the question, I have a responsibility to answer. The Ramosha says, for example, that someone asks him a question. Ramosha says a person has a responsibility to answer to that question. So on the surface, someone asks me the question, then it means that the answer that I'm supposed to give you, that my answer is the correct answer for you.
Yeah,
okay,
so you have the expertise.
Right. But there is a certain perspective where you have some type of leeway where you can again take the spectator viewpoint and say, listen, that individual came to ask me, but there's no real connection why he has to follow my idea. And if I go back spectator and I see his whole circumstance, I really think that as a spectator, seeing the entire corpus, it's better for him to go to that person to get the direction. There is a your question is why should your question is why should your halachic statement be the one that is presented and be the dominant one and be the answer. And you're right. Him asking me the question would be a reason to say yes, I have to paskin. However, if I take a bigger picture and look at it from a spectator, I can basically at times say, wait a second, we don't have to follow through in this. You do have the option to ask a different person. Okay, and therefore all I'm doing is withdrawing myself and allowing you to ask a different person.
See, I had it happen to me once.
Yeah.
I was working with a school.
Mm-hmm.
And the only place the school could open was in a conservative shul.
Mm-hmm.
In the basement with a separate entrance.
Yeah.
We went to the Rabbi who was poskening for us.
Yeah.
And he said, I can't tell you that that's permitted. But so-and-so can tell you that it's permitted.
Okay.
I said, does that mean you believe it is permitted but you can't tell us that?
No, it's not permitted.
Right?
Yeah.
He didn't answer the question.
Right. Actually, there are people who would say that sometimes.
He repeated his first answer.
Right.
I concluded that he would never tell me. I mean, I couldn't imagine a rabbi would tell me to go and do something that he felt is prohibited. You know, because some other rabbi will tell me it's okay for me to eat some forbidden food. Why would a rabbi tell me
maybe
to go
he's afraid
talk
of
to
his
that person?
reputation.
No, the truth is, okay.
Well,
so
it was that, I'm not sure that reputation is a kind of small-minded way of saying it. I'm not sure that was it. But I would say that he felt that
if people knew he was saying it was okay, it would not be
that they might draw other conclusions
about his
from his
I
position.
don't think it really has to do with the rabbi.
Okay.
I
Can
think when the person approaches and you actually see who that person is and what he's going to do in the end or leaning towards, you don't want to take it upon yourself that if you're going to pass him something and he doesn't do it in the end, that it really becomes that he's doing it in there and he's going against the path.
The fact...
You believe it's wrong, you have to do it.
The fact is... Wait a second.
You have to see the situation, who the person is, and who's going to listen to it.
Okay.
And what the circumstances.
The fact is that there are situations where a person knows the opinions and says, listen, I really think it's okay, but I can't say it for whatever reason. Go over that person because he can't say that. There are situations where that happens for situations.
The description you gave of the Rabbi and Rabbi Soloveitchik to me sounds exactly like that.
No,
the Rabbi doesn't really believe that it's
that's
wrong
not true.
to get
That's
married.
not true. No, not get married. Have it done. No.
The Rabbi doesn't
See, because
believe it's wrong
the fact is, see, what you're talking about here is something that's much more difficult. It's what really is right and wrong in halacha. There's such a subtle distinction,
Black and white.
right? It's a fact that in the mind of the halachic mind, I remember one guy once asked me a question. I remember my father was sitting shiva, and at the time, I don't know if it should take this story. You know, my father was very involved in Ottawa in the start of the Maimonides Day School in Ottawa, which was connected to Lubavitch. The Lubavitch rabbi in town founded it. It was connected to Lubavitch, and my father was involved in the shul. So it turned out at the shiva, a lot of Lubavitchers came over. A lot of people who became from through Lubavitchers over and so forth. And it just certain things that just came normal out of Lubavitch. Like your father should be a good Besser. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, there's a whole big shot if you say that, a good Besser or whatever. Okay, so someone kept going with me and so forth and so forth. And finally, it came out talking about the Nishma and the Nishma. So I remember it was almost towards the end of the Shiva. I was getting already so inundated with all these viewpoints. So this person said something about Yiddish and Nishma, and I said, you do recognize that not everyone holds there's such a thing as a Yiddish and Nishma, right? Jewish soul, right? And this woman was like, what? Because it's fundamental to Chabad philosophy to believe in the uniqueness of Yiddish and Neshama. The point is that...
Not the Rambam.
What? Not the Rambam, okay? Although the reason they don't say not the Rambam is because you don't have the Rambam really stating he doesn't believe in the Yiddish and Neshama. You just don't have him ever talking about a Yiddish and Neshama. But it's very funny because there's an English translation of the Rambam with a commentary by Lubavitcher, and in it, when he talking about the Neshama, the commentary of Lubavitcher says he's talking about the Yiddish and Neshama, which is very funny because he's trying to ship it into the Rambam. Okay. Anyways, from my perspective. Anyways, but the point is that as I said, there's no, there are people who don't hold the Yiddish and Neshama. So like what? Like it's like this what? This person was saying, what? Like I pulled the rug underneath from her. So but you really believe in Yiddish and Nishma. You really believe there's one. So I sort of looked at her and I said, the truth is, what I really believe, it's a machlokas rishonim. That's what I really believe. Basically, the Kuzari and the Rambam. That's what I really believe. The fact is, in the mind of most people, there is a world of the machlokas. And then there's the fact that you have to paskin. But every time you paskin, you say, okay, which one do I think is right? But the more dominant viewpoint in your head is the fact that between these gedolim, they had disagreements. So I think this position is like when I just said, like what I just said before. I think Minisfora, the Rav's position on adoption. Minisfora, I think that it makes sense to me. But the truth of the matter is, the Chazon Ish rejected it. Who am I? Connected the Chazon Ish. So in my mind, as I say, I hold like the Rav. In my mind, there's already a balancing act. But the fact is, the Chazon Ish didn't hold that way. So the truth is I have to paskin, which means I have to live and I have to act. And therefore I have to say, this is right. But the real aspect of my mind, I'm recognizing that it's beyond that simplicity. So the truth is, when a person hears and says, I can't paskin that way, what he's really saying is, listen, when it comes down to it, and I have to make a finite decision in the world, in the concrete world of action, I have to say you can't do that. But in my mind, I recognize that people who are greater than me held yes, and other people who are greater than me held no. And it just so happens that my position actually sides with these people. But the truth is that in the greater corpus of that world, of people of Chachmei Yisrael and Begedolim Mimeni, I have to recognize there's a variety of opinions. So the truth is, for me then to say my position should be imposed upon you, all right, do I have to impose my position upon you? You ask me a shaila, no, I have to paskin. But the truth of it, it comes down to that type of situation. Yes, I am.
Absolutely not.
No.
You're saying you came to me for an answer.
Right.
And the answer I'm going to give you is not the answer you wanted me to give you.
Right, so therefore...
The answer you wanted me to give you, you can get from Reb Shmuel.
Right. And the fact is what really I should have done is ask you...
The person saying I came to you.
Okay, so that's something else. See, in that situation where I would have started talking about...
The real question is who are you to say that your opinion is not valid?
So that's it. So that's the point. The fact of the matter is now you're raising a point that I would have discussed. I would have said to the person, listen, why are you asking me? Why is it that you've chosen to ask me? And if a person says, because we want to follow your direction, then I'd say, okay, here's my psak. See, in that issue over there, if it just so happens that you chose me to be your posek, but there's no real reason why you chose me. Because you like me, whatever, or because you think I'm knowledgeable. But the point is, if it gets to a situation where I see that my position, which lives in a world of a variety of positions, will cause a hardship to you, then I have to be honest to say, okay, why should you suffer this hardship? Why is it that you're bound by me? Now, the truth is, you have a lot of times with rabbis, there are certain people. I've had situations like that. I paskin the organizations ask me questions in New York. I paskin, the person asked me is a person who's very close to me. He'll follow my kulas, follows my kulas, and so forth. They ask me a question, and I'll lay down an answer, fully knowing they listen. If you ask someone else, mostly you'll get a better answer, the answer you really want to hear. This is my psak. And the fact is, the person says, yeah, we want you to direct us. So that's it. There's that relationship. What I would have brought up with the person is that issue, why you're asking me. And I think that's a very good question. Okay? Okay? That's the issue over there. But the point is for me to impose my perception of the truth upon you, knowing that there are people who are greater than me, and the machlokesim, that I have to be worried about. In other words, the truth is in a certain way, I respect him for being so wary, because a lot of people are willing to paskin left and right like they know everything. Follow? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the case of the Lubavitch Rebbe, it may be that he may have made a decision that it is not appropriate for a Rebbe of Lubavitch to say X. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It means it's not appropriate for to say it.
The truth is that in terms of the Lubavitcher, is a little bit different because the chassid, and it bothered me when I heard that case also, because the chassid is specifically saying, I want to follow your direction. So that really bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, I was curious about it. Generally speaking, the Rebbe doesn't ask.
Right, but the fact is maybe in this situation he really felt this was important to the family, and because he understood the issues, he wanted to open it up. Okay.
Thank you very much.